Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Welcome to the course of Fundamental of Econometrics. This is the course that perhaps is going to work as a foundational course for you for the two courses which you are going to study in your degree program. So in that perspective, I would say that it's a very important course. So before I start the course, let me introduce myself. I am Muhammad Saber. I'm working as an associate professor of economics at NUST Business School, National University of Science and Technology, Islamabad. And I'm working as here as associate professor from November 2019. Before joining NBS, I was working as a head of Department of Management Sciences at Ghulam Isa Khan Institute of Engineering Sciences and Technology, which is known as GIKI. I worked there as assistant professor and as associate professor. Before joining full-time academia, I was working in Planning Commission, Government of Pakistan. I worked there in two different time periods. One before my PhD, that was during 2004 and 6. I worked there as a research officer, and that was BPS grade 17 officer, and then I worked in post PhD period, that was as assistant chief, which was grade 18 from 2011 to 2014. My academic background is I did my PhD in applied economics from Vrije Universiteit Amsterdam, the Netherlands. That's my PhD from there. Then I also had Master of Applied Sciences, that's called MAS, from Applied Economics Research Center, University of Karachi, Pakistan. I also had MA Economics from University of Peshawar. Also, during joining academia and the business schools during last 6-7 years, I developed my interest in studying business administration. So I did a postgraduate diploma in business and a master's in operations and supply chain management, just to be linked with the learning and knowledge in the management area. So this was my detailed introduction. Now let me move to the course. So the course which we are going to have, you people are going to have with me, is Fundamental of Econometrics. So the course learning outcomes are that it is aimed for telling you about the basic principle of econometric analysis. It's a fundamental and the basic course. In this course, you are going to understand some fundamental technique of linear regression analysis and its application and estimation in a variety of real-world applications. I will be also talking about aiming for telling you and making you expert of dealing with the assumptions associated with the classical linear regression model and how its violation to affect your analysis. We are also going to apply regression analysis to real world economic example, and we are going to use hypothesis testing and doing prediction based on it. After studying this course, you will be also able to recognize and make adjustment for a number of common regression problems that do arise because of the violation of one of the assumption of linear regression models. So moving ahead, the course outline. So the content of the course is pretty extensive. I have shown on this slide the pre-mid course. So that's a 8-week course, and on 9th week you have midterm. In this week mainly we aim for the basic of the regression analysis. We are going to discuss, first we are going to talk about what is econometrics about, some statistical tools, and then revision of some statistic concepts. Then we are going to start with linear regression model, some fundamental things associated to linear regression model. Then we are going to talk about the nature and sources of data, how we estimate the regression models, and down the line we go further with starting using the software eViews and applying all these learning which we will have theoretically initially to real world data and try to understand how we can interpret the outcomes of the output of a regression model and how we can model the data. So that's pretty much the first part of the course. In post midterm course, we are going to see how the failure of not meeting the classical linear regression assumption is going to affect our analysis. So in that perspective, we are going to talk about heteroscedasticity, autocorrelation, multicollinearity, and model specification issues. So we are going to talk about all these in the post-mid course. Finally, we are in the next slide, I'm going to talk about the grading scheme. Since you already know this semester is going to be affected by COVID as well, so the grading schemes are placed in such a manner that we do address the issues we may confront after the if there is some uncertain situation happens that is prevail at the moment. So the evaluation would be on assignment, project, midterm, and final or terminal exam. 10% each weight for assignments and quizzes. Sorry, not quizzes, assignment and project. There will be no quiz. Midterm and terminal exam would be 30 and 50 respectively. Assignment in numbers would be most probably 2 assignments or maybe 3, you will see, and the project would be 10% weight for the project. We will discuss the project later stage. Make sure about the minimum requirement of the attendance for the semester, and please no cell phone during the class. If you have some important call, please leave the class, attend your call and come back, but no use of cell phone during the class. Assignments, I plan for 2 assignments, A1, A2, during the 3rd week and the 8th week. But we will see. I will be sharing that with you during the semester. The project, I will share more detail later, but at this point in time, you will be doing a small project based on some real-world econometric analysis. So you will be starting with some economic or management theory, and based on that, you will be collecting some secondary data, not primary data. You are not going to go in field and collect data. All the data you need will be, or the project should be, based on secondary source data, which is a published data. I will be talking about different sources of data from where you can get secondary data, so you can collect the data from there. You will be getting the data from there. So you will be taking the data, you will be establishing an econometric model, and then you are going to estimate that model, and then you are going to take care of a number of problems associated with that particular problem in hand you are studying, and then you are going to do all that reporting and making your analysis and a full report. So that would be pretty much the detail of the project. We will do discussion on that at a later stage. So moving towards the books and the text that are needed for this course. In very short words, I would say that you can take any undergrad level econometrics book, any book written by a good author could be sufficient for covering this course. However, I have a number of textbook which I would like to share with you, and maybe you would be interested in it. So the course book which I'm going to follow is Gujarati book Econometrics by Example. That's Damdar Gujarati. It's written by him. It's in Econometrics by Example, a very applied book and very good book, and that's the book I'm going to follow across the course. I'm also going to take help from a number of other books. One of these books is Jeffrey Waldridge book, Introductory Econometrics, a Modern Approach. This is also a very good book. However, it's more extensive compared to Gujarati book. I would recommend any of these books, but personally I'm going to follow Econometrics by Example. Beside these 2 books, we have more books. For example, this Gujarati book, Basic Econometrics, which is a very detailed basic level book. It's also a very good book, normally taught at a master's level to economics student. Someone interested in learning beyond this course are recommended to consult this book as well. I'm going to take some topics from this book as well, where I feel like the Gujarati first book is not covering that to the sufficient level. Then I will be taking some content from this book as well. But again, I will be mainly focused on the first book. Then Peter Kennedy book, A Guide to Econometrics, 5th edition. I think now it's later editions are also available. This is a very good book. I personally like this book a lot. For the reason for that is that this book divide each chapter into multiple section, and the first section normally contain have the detail about the theoretical concept without using any jargons or technical terms or equations. So someone having difficulty with understanding the concept using the notation may switch to this book and can read this book. That may be also helpful. From my perspective, the main text is econometrics by example. I'm going to follow that, and back and forth I will be taking some content from the other books as well, but the main focus and theme would be from econometrics by example, and I will be following that book topic by topic. So if you want to read just one book, read Gujarati econometrics by example. Okay, so that was the references books. Now let me move to discussing what or how you can get the maximum out of this course. So to tell you, this course is quantitative in nature. You will be confronting with a lot of equation, data, and mathematical terms and jargon. So it's a quantitative in nature, and you must know that when you have a quantitative course, it needs some extra efforts, it needs some extra time for covering up the course, the concepts, and then linking the previous learning with the new learning need you to study thoroughly, to study continuously. So my advice would be that instead of waiting till midterm and then reading the entire content and just passing or hardly passing or even not being able to pass this course, my advice would be start reading from week 1. Go lecture by lecture, cover content every week. Don't leave it, don't accumulate it to the last minute. It wouldn't work for this course. This would be difficult. The second thing which I want to talk about is book reading versus slides. I come across this question quite frequently from the student asking me whether they should read the books or should look into the slides. As far as I'm concerned, for me, book reading is more important. Slide is my reflection of the important key points from the book. So my advice for you would be to focus on the book. However, please be informed that book reading will give you the return in long run, not in short run. In short run, you may be having difficulties to get familiar with the writer and getting something more comprehensively from the book. So you may initially face some problems. However, by the finish line, for sure the book reader would be in a better advantage. So if you can spare more time, I would strongly advise you to read the book. Focus on the book reading rather than on the slides only. Then one book versus more than one book. Well, in today's world, in semester system, it's become difficult for the student even to cope up with one book. So my advice would be, if you can do with one book, that's more than sufficient. But if someone can spare time and can read more than one book on a particular course, that's ideal. That's beyond the ideal. For sure, it will add to your knowledge. But my advice would be, if you want to do maximum, at least one book reading of the textbook is important. Aim for lifelong learning rather than just learning in this particular course only, because if you just aim for learning within this course, it would not be once you are done with your semester, you will be forgetting the concept and it will be of no use. So aim for lifelong learning rather than just for sake of learning in the grade for the grades. Class attendance are important because it's a quantitative course. So quantitative course need you to build a foundation gradually. It's like climbing on or going up on stairs. Every new stairs required you to have covered the previous steps. So in my course, if you miss the classes, you would be facing difficulties with understanding the content in the upcoming classes. So for that reason, I would say class attendance is very, very important. In case you miss the class, in case you were unable to attend the class because of some unforeseen circumstances. For those who are on DL mode, sometime it may be difficult for them to follow me, or because of the connectivity or some other issues. So for all of them, I would say that go to this YouTube channel, Quantitative Methods for Economics and Management, and find for the playlist. This is the link for this YouTube channel, and you can go for the playlist Fundamental of Econometrics. It's highlighted here. Go for this playlist. Your all lectures, including this particular lecture, is part of is available in this playlist, so you can watch all your lectures here. I will be strongly advising you to not miss your classes. Do attend the classes, but for some reasons, if you couldn't do watch the lectures whenever it's convenient to you, and make sure that you grasp the contents, because if you missed it, you wouldn't be able to follow the content at a later stage, and ultimately you will be not able to perform good in this particular course. Okay, with that, let me start with week 1. In week 1, I'm going to cover two things. First, an introduction to the course Econometrics, and then the revision of some statistics concepts. So in today's lecture, I'm just going to talk about some basic things related to econometrics. In tomorrow or the next class, the second lecture, I will be covering some basic concepts of statistics. So let me start with the introduction of econometrics. If we go for the literal meaning of econometrics, it means economic measurement. So something measured in economics is called econometrics. However, econometrics formally refers to statistical methods that are used to analyze economic data. This is one definition of the econometric science. However, it is not the only definition of econometrics. Econometrics can be defined by number of ways. Some other ways of defining econometrics is that it's the combination of economics, maths, and statistics. Or could be some more definitions to econometrics as well. To me, the simplest definition is the one which is written on this slide, and if you have to define it, I would advise you to stick to that one. Okay, then we say that in this particular science, normally we deal with non-experimental data. Non-experimental data refers to the data that's collected out of the lab. It's not from the lab. Although now we have in experimental economics as well. It's a branch of econometrics. Econometrics as a discipline, initially it started as a part of economic science. It was not considered as a separate discipline of science. Rather, it was considered as a part of economic science, and with passage of time, with development in these areas, it emerged as a separate discipline, and it now had a lot of application beyond economic science, and it has been used now in finance, in management, in sociology, in HR, in so many other fields. So initially starting as a part of economic science, now it's being as a separate discipline with wide range application in a lot of other management and social sciences discipline. It's important to mention it's not a very old science. In fact, the two Nobel laureate of economics, the first two, Jane Tinbergen and Roger Frisch, were the two Nobel laureate. The first two, these are considered as the founding father of econometrics as per Wikipedia. So having said about econometrics, the question is, why you need to study this course, since my students are from either management sciences or from finance side. So I'm addressing this question in particularly for the context of linking it with the management sciences and the finance. But however, before going there, if I talk about application of econometric analysis for economic science, we can see that econometric has an application for estimating relationship between economic variable, forecasting economic variables, and testing economic theories. So this is one area of application that if you have to establish some relationship among economic variable, or if you have to forecast some economic variable, or if you have to test some economic theories, then you need econometric analysis. Sometimes you have to evaluate or implement some government policies and to see some impacts of it on the economy or on the businesses, or sometimes you are working in an organization and you want to see if a particular business policy has been done, or if they are supposed to be undertaken, how it is going to affect the business profitability, for example, or so other fundamental of the business may respond to it. So we can do that through econometric analysis. There are a wide range of applications as being mentioned earlier in management, in finance, in marketing, in HR, and the list goes on. So why you need to study this course? Some other example other than economics, so now it's relevant to the management and finance people. For example, I may be interested to know that how when immigrant goes to some other countries, how it affects the native workers. Think of, for example, Canadian or Australian continents, or Canadian country, where they are encouraging other national peoples, especially the highly skilled people, to come and join their countries and immigrate to their countries. Why they are doing it? Oh, that's another question. But let's say we are interested to know that when these highly skilled people goes there and join their labor market, how it affects the local workers over there. So if we want to study this kind of phenomena, we can use some econometric tools. Similarly, think of a firm getting into the market or leaving the market. What are the factors that affect the firm decision to get in a market, or leaving, if there is a firm, why would the firm leave the market? What are the factors it's affecting it? So these kind of study could be done through econometrics. Similarly, we may be interested to know that what kind of management techniques are encouraging worker productivity. So again, we can do some regression analysis and can find that. We may be interested to know that how the dividend announcement on stock market prices affect the investor behavior. If the dividends are announced, how it affects the stock market prices and how it's ultimately affect the investor behavior. Similarly, we may think of predicting the revenue increase in response of a market campaign. For example, let's say a firm is spending aggressively on its marketing campaign, how it is going to affect the revenues. So we can do that prediction, or we can see that how marketing campaign is linked with the revenue increase of a firm. So these all kind of analysis could be done through econometric analysis. Now the next thing which I want to talk about is nature of econometrics and economic data. So we say that econometric analysis is normally undertaken into two parts. The first step, or the first part, is economic model. Normally this model is skipped. I will be talking about it in a minute. And the second is the econometric model. So let's talk about it one by one. Economic model refers to having some economic theory, some economic model. We already know what is meant by economic model or a model. Model is the simplification or simplified version of real world complex phenomena. So in economic model, we could have number of models such as micro or macro model, or optimization behavior model, or equilibrium model. Sometimes we are interested to establish relationship among some economic variables, for example, demand or supply model or pricing equation. So all these are economic model. All of these models are presenting some simplified version of real world complex phenomena. So economic models. And then we say econometric model. In econometric model, we talk about converting this economic model to a specified model. In economic model, we just identify the phenomena, we identify the various factors associated to that particular phenomena. So that's the economic model. And in the next step, we convert it to econometric model, in which we specify the particular model into more mathematical form. So we call it an econometric model. More detail will be follow in upcoming lectures about it, where you will be given the task to construct economic model or convert it to econometric model. Normally, when econometric analysis are undertaken, because of the availability of the data, extensive data, most of the time people skip the first part. They just focus on the second part, the econometric model, and goes with it. This may be okay, but it's always advisable to have economic model, and economic model being followed or backed by three important filters. The first filter is your common sense. While constructing an economic model, do apply your common sense. The second is the theory, economic theory. Any model you want to construct should follow some theory, some text, some laws should be followed, if there is any, and then there is some scholarly backup for constructing an economic model. For example, if you want to study a phenomena which is based on two variables, you want to study their relationship, so it's always advisable to apply your common sense, to check it with economic books, your books, textbook, whether this kind of phenomena exists, and then check the scholarly literature, the published research papers on it, and study if such kind of phenomena really do exist or not. If someone has studied it, what is of the nature? So you should be very clear about it, and only then you go to the next stage. So now we'll talk about some publication. These are the publications that I recently had it. Two of them recently published. One is a slightly older study. Just wanted to show you that how people use econometrics tools and do publish. The first study, the economic viability of foreign investment in railway, a case study of CPAC. In this study, what we did was that we did cost benefit analysis of Pakistan railway project, which is part of CPAC project, and we studied that how or if it is economically viable to invest in one of the project which is going to upgrade the ML1 or main link 1 from Peshawar to Karachi. There is a proposal and then there is a project in which they are going to spend money to make it double this line and upgrade its speed from current under 100 to over 150 kilometers per hour. So we studied that. In this particular study, we use very basic tools and some basic regression analysis, and we were able to publish it in a really good journal. The second one, killing kilos in car accident are external cost of car weight internalized. This is a very interesting study published in Economics of Transportation. That was something I was working during my PhD. However, I was unable to finish it during that time, but got it published later on, not as a part of my PhD. Anyhow, so this study study that how if the weight of a vehicle it increase the probability of being killed, and based on that it compares that how the tax regime work in Europe and if it's justified or not. The third one, which is published this year, this is impact of transport strikes on Pakistan economy, and we use input-output model for that. That's very interesting study. So in that we studied that when the transport strike happens, how it affects different sectors of the economy. It uses input-output modeling technique. This is a pretty advanced econometrics that study the entire economy, different sector. We use 25 sector input-output model, so input-output table. So that make it very comprehensive study and a very interesting one. So this is just to raise some of your curiosity and the return you may get in the future if you work on this science. With that, I will conclude my lecture, and I hope that you got some good idea of your content of this course, and I look forward to have a very productive sessions with you during this course. Thank you very much, and I hope see you in next class. Thank you.